What's up, Flick fans? Spike Lee's Highest to Lowest is in limited theaters right now, starring Denzel Washington. My local movie tavern was the only theater playing it, and so today we're going to talk about it. It comes out on Apple TV Plus, I believe, September 5th.
Now ain't this something? I got your full attention now, huh? You finally listening to me.
Somebody's got Trey.
Spike Lee and Denzel, every time they work together, they make magic. That's once again the case here. Denzel Washington's performance is magnetic all throughout this movie. This is a movie with a lot of energy, and we're going to talk about the editing in general and kind of the pacing and how it gets you going and really never lets off the gas, and that is a detriment at points, specifically in the first half, when at least I needed a chance to breathe, and the movie never gave me that opportunity, and it's just a lot of consistent exposition to get us going and let us peek into the life of Washington's character. Like I said, he plays this guy who is on top of the industry that he knows all too well, turning artists into celebrities. He's got the best ears in the business, and a couple of discussions in the first act. I don't even really know why they took up time, like, oh, AI is taking over and the game is changing, but the real meat of the story is the fact that he wants to do something big. I won't spoil what that is, but make a drastic decision that's also going to be big for a lot of others who have made investments, but it's going to cost him a lot of money, and that all comes to a screeching halt when he finds out that his son has been kidnapped, and everyone gets involved. I'm talking the whole city. His name and face is in the newspaper. Everyone's fully aware of what's going on, but this family, they're just trying to deal with the tragedy of it all. You also have Jeffrey Wright, by the way. Jeffrey Wright, Denzel Washington, Spike Lee. Come on.
It was perfect.
But Denzel plays David King, Jeffrey Wright plays Paul. They have a beautiful and strong bond, but both of them are living drastically different lives. Paul is kind of the everyman. He's worked very hard to get to where he is, but Denzel's given him plenty of opportunities to be where he is. And Denzel's David, he's on top of the world at the beginning of this film. The highest of highs. But with the title of this movie, Highest to Lowest, you know things can come crashing down like that. And the decisions that David has to make all throughout this movie, at times he makes the right and selfless decision. At other times, you can tell he's had a little bit of that fame and fortune get to him. He's making the selfish decision, and some of those themes concurrent to what we saw in the original. This is based off Akira Kurosawa's OG movie, doing it through the lens of how he normally tells his stories, the African-American experience, and how things can differ so drastically between a man who has that level of wealth and success, and then Jeffrey Wright's character, who is also going through a lot in this movie. They give you a little twist on what happens about halfway through that I thought was really brilliant, and about halfway through this movie is when it started to come together for me. And now you're thinking to yourself, Austin, that's not good if the first half is bad. And I'm not going to say as a whole, the first half or really act of this movie is bad, but it's very inconsistent. Honestly, it's kind of sloppily edited and put together. The score behind some of these integral moments does not really match up to what we're getting on screen. And I found this to be one of Spike Lee's more sloppy first acts in general of any movie that he's ever directed. It really does take 30 to 45 minutes to fully start to come together, and I just found some of the choices to be very odd. Going back to that melodramatic music that almost contradicts the tone that some of the dialogue's going for at points, or it's just way too on the nose. Like, you get this sad and tragic kidnapping of their son, and the music that starts to play is so far on the nose for the emotions of the scene. It's trying to pull you in a certain direction, and I don't love when a score does this on most occasions, right? And I'm thinking, this is odd. All of it's odd. And I go back to the editing, some of the cuts, things happening multiple times, the overwhelming amount of camera angles and edits in the apartment between David and his wife, Pam. By the way, I'm not going to rag on performances in this film. We'll talk about the great, but in terms of performances that didn't quite work for me, Pam is one of those. Some very emotional moments regarding their son where she's trying to deliver on that emotion, and maybe it's where she's going up against Denzel Washington, and it's just not as good in comparison, but I found some of those moments really lacking. And I know some of you all have tuned out at this review by now, and you're thinking, he hates this movie, he's the worst. But there's something that happens at the halfway point regarding this plan that they have in place to try their best to get his son back after he has to make a couple of selfless decisions that he's very up against at first. And you see the moral dilemma that he's facing, but you also see kind of that selfishness of a man in power in his position. Again, the themes are all there in the first half, but when it starts to come together is that very first train sequence where this plan is taking place. There's a Puerto Rican festival going on in this city. Austin, what are you talking about? As well as a bunch of Yankee fans that get on this train, and this is when the editing started to pick up, and I really started to feel Spike Lee more in his decision-making, the mix and match of cultures and kind of what this movie is saying to start with, plus this sequence, plus the tension is raising in that scene, and the movie gets better. And the movie turns into something a little different than what it was. Everything starts to make sense at that point. The decision-making, the score gets better, the music that's playing, the vision of Spike Lee starts to make more sense, and then the movie picks up and ultimately becomes better in every single way. I liked the editing at that point. I felt this pacing. It's almost like injecting itself into your veins, saying, all right, here's what we're doing now, and I need you to roll with me. Let's roll with the punches. And that's when the film started to find its footing. You get that Jeffrey Wright performance you're looking for. Denzel has a couple of monologues here, but also a back and forth with A$AP Rocky. My biggest fear with this film is a rapper. Can he act? I don't really know if he can act. Who knows?
I don't know.
Giving you some insight into what this movie is ultimately about. Again, that title, Highest to Lowest, comes into play multiple times. But there is a back and forth between Denzel and A$AP Rocky in a recording studio where they are just feeding off of each other's energy. And A$AP's kind of rapping lyrically. Denzel Washington's doing the same. And it's just such natural, beautiful dialogue. And it's one of the more compelling scenes of the year for me. It's Denzel at his best. You have a non-actor kind of feeding off of this titan, both in the movie and in real life, this performance that is magnetic, and you actually have some awesome back and forth. Now, I do think it introduces some themes, thematically, especially in the final 5 to 10 minutes of this movie, that would have been a lot better if it would have been injected a little earlier in the film, not just introduced to us in the third act, but it's still working in the way that Spike Lee is conveying it. You get some very interesting twists and turns. Love what they did with Jeffrey Wright's character. I also love the humor in here. It's very natural, doesn't feel forced. Jeffrey Wright has a line of dialogue, actually two, involving insurance companies. That's all I will say. The biggest laughs, one of the bigger laughs I've heard in quite some time. Just a phenomenal, perfect comedic timing. And some of these moments in the third act of this movie, I'm thinking, where was this in the first? Like, this is phenomenal filmmaking. The ending is rousing. It's keeping you on the edge of your seat. Yeah, it's a little generic on its surface, but once you start to dive into what they're actually talking about, I'm thinking, where was this? It's a commentary on life, music, rap culture, art, the decisions that you make. Again, that title, Highest to Lowest, is, it's absolutely beautiful. One of the best titled movies of the year, funny enough. But some of these sequences, man, I'm just thinking the entire time, that's what I've been looking for from Spike Lee for the last several years. And I'm not saying Da 5 Bloods was a bad movie, and I'm not saying, he's been a little more up and down as of late. Huge fan of BlacKkKlansman, but this was just rousing. That 40-minute span between the first train sequence and the second train sequence, by the way, kind of mirroring a very similar train sequence that we see in the original Kurosawa film, but I loved everything about that portion of the movie. The audience that I was sitting with, one couple, they talked quite a bit, and I was about ready to say something, but at least they were having fun, enjoying themselves, and there were a lot of interactions in the theater after the movie was over, people saying, okay, no, that really worked out. I don't think they had as many issues as I did with the first act, but ultimately, this was an experience, and I will say, Spike Lee went from disappointing me to surprising me to ultimately making me feel something by the end, and that's kind of what you want with a movie that is inconsistent, but at least it evoked an emotional response that even I didn't expect by the end. Before I give you my score, let me know what you think of Highest to Lowest. Share this video, leave a comment, drop a like, all of those things. What is your favorite Spike Lee movie? And should I do a rank? While Highest to Lowest is a mixed bag in the first half, featuring some odd editing choices and a score that refuses to match the tone of the scene, The second half clicks and hits some of the highest filmmaking notes of the year. Denzel Washington is a damn force of nature. The script's deeper themes finally ignite, and a few jaw-dropping sequences are seared into my brain. The title perfectly mirrors the roller coaster experience, yet this bold remake of Kurosawa's classic crafts something so uniquely gripping that I feel compelled to highly recommend this remake. And I know not everyone is going to enjoy it, but just recommend it to see what type of experience it allows you to have, what type of emotional response this movie is going to elicit from you all. Do you have the issues that I have with this film? Regardless, it's something to talk about, and that's pretty cool. Be sure to watch this on Apple TV+. Otherwise, it's in some theaters. Bye-bye.